Okay, today we are diving into one of the internet's biggest and honestly spookiest mysteries. How in the world do the Simpsons keep predicting the future with such terrifying accuracy?
For more than 30 years, this show has thrown out scenes that years later actually happen in real life. We're talking major political shifts, wild tech breakthroughs. It's no wonder there are so many conspiracy theories out there.
All right, let's just jump right in with the big one, the Trump presidency. So, back in the year 2000, in an episode called Bart to the Future, they make this offhand joke about Lisa Simpson becoming president right after a guy named President Trump. Now, fast forward 16 years. Donald Trump announces he's running, and the scene of him coming down that escalator, it is uncannily similar to a shot from the show. Now, to be fair, the original episode just mentioned his name, but a later promo clip animated that escalator scene, making the whole thing even weirder. And check this one out. Way back in 1998, there was this quick blink and you'll miss it gag. You see the 20th Century Fox logo, but underneath it says, a division of Walt Disney Co. At the time, it was just a funny jab at corporations getting bigger. But then, almost 20 years later, it actually happened. I mean, you see stuff like this and you can't help but wonder, right? How is this even possible? This is what fuels all those wild online theories, that the writers are secretly time travelers, or maybe they're part of some secret club that's pulling all the strings. But what if the real answer isn't quite so magical? When you really start to dig into it, you find that it's less about prophecy and more about a really clever combination of factors. It's not just one thing, but a mix of three key reasons. So let's break down how they do it. The first, and honestly the most powerful explanation, doesn't involve a crystal ball at all. It's just simple math. It's something called the law of large numbers. Just think about it for a second. The show has been on the air since 1989. We're talking more than 790 episodes. That is thousands and thousands and thousands of jokes, gags, and random plot points about literally everything you can imagine. You know, the showrunner Al Jean said it best himself. If you throw enough darts, you're gonna get some bullseyes. And that's really the key here. It's a numbers game. When you create that much content for that long, some coincidences aren't just likely. They are pretty much inevitable. Okay, so reason number two is where things get a little bit sneaky, because a lot of these so-called predictions, well, they're not really predictions about the future at all. They're actually just clever jokes about stuff that was already happening at the time. This is what's so interesting. It kind of reframes everything. People point to a 1997 episode that mentioned the Ebola virus, but that virus was first identified in 1976, and it was all over the news in the 90s. Or what about that smartwatch from 1995? Well, prototypes had been kicking around since the 70s, and video calls, that's been a staple of science fiction forever. So you see, the writers weren't looking into our future. They were just paying really close attention to their present. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important reason. At the end of the day, the writer's room for The Simpsons is packed with some of the smartest, sharpest observers of our society out there. Their entire job is satire. They look at current trends, what we're all worried about, where politics seems to be heading, and then they just push it to its most absurd, most ridiculous conclusion. That's where the comedy is. And you know what? Sometimes reality just decides to catch up to the absurdity they dreamed up. Let's circle back to that Trump prediction. One of the writers, Dan Groening, actually explained it. He said they needed President Lisa Simpson to inherit a country in chaos. So they asked themselves, what's the most absurd possible reason for that? And a budget crisis left behind by a President Trump, well, that seemed like the funniest, most ridiculous joke they could make. It wasn't a prophecy, it was a warning wrapped in a joke. But we have to talk about another layer to all this, one that's a lot more recent, and that is the problem of outright fakes that just get cooked up to spread like wildfire on the internet. Seriously, you have to be so careful about this. With modern editing tools, literally anyone can whip up a totally convincing but totally fake Simpsons prediction, and usually they prey on big emotional news stories. A perfect example is the tragic fire at Notre Dame Cathedral. Right after it happened, this image of Mr. Burns standing in front of the burning building went viral. But it was completely fabricated. The real scene from 2007 just showed the cathedral perfectly fine. Someone edited in the flames after the fire happened. And here's an even more cynical one, this heartbreaking prediction about Kobe Bryant's death. The picture shows Bart at a grave with Bryant's name on it. This is a disgusting manipulation of a real scene from the show where the grave was for his grandfather, Abe Simpson. It was changed just to exploit a tragedy. So after all that, where does it leave us? What's the final verdict here? Are they prophets, or is something else going on? Really, the truth is a combination of everything we've talked about. Sure, there are a few genuinely weird, uncanny coincidences that are pretty hard to explain away. But most of them, they can be explained by pure logic. It's a super long-running show, they pay attention to history, and they are masters of satire. And layered on top of all that is this growing pile of internet fakes designed to trick us.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Maybe The Simpsons isn't a crystal ball that shows us what's going to happen. Maybe it's a mirror that reflects the absurdities and possibilities of our own world so well and for so long that eventually we're the ones who make their punchlines a reality. What do you think?